Welcome back to Rich Girl Roundup. As a reminder, we take listener questions about every month on Instagram, and we pick one that feels interesting and widely applicable. This is really a What Would Katie Do segment, so as my standard disclaimer, I am not a licensed financial professional. Please don't consider this financial advice. This week's question is also from someone named Sarah. I'm having a hard time convincing myself to put more of my paycheck into my 401k when it just keeps losing money every month. Isn't that just throwing it away? Should I wait until it's at least going in the right direction to increase my monthly contribution? First, I want to validate that these feelings are totally natural. If you are feeling like you are lighting money on fire because every dollar you throw in immediately loses value, that is a completely rational and understandable reaction, right? We want to stop the bleeding. That's human. It's a natural emotion that does not help us very much, especially when we consider the data. So I want to offer a different way to think about this. Let's say you are buying shares of the S&P 500 in your 401k via the index fund VFIAX, just as an example. Every single contribution you make will buy a certain number of shares, depending on how much VFIAX is valued at the time you buy the shares. Now, for example's sake, let's imagine I get paid every Friday, right? So if my 401k contribution is deposited and used to buy shares on the following Monday, that means I would have paid $350 per share on October 24th, $339 per share on the Monday before that, $333 per share the week before that, $339 the week before that, right, etc. If I'm putting in $1,000 at a time, my $1,000 goes further when the shares are priced lower. I can buy more shares for less money. Now, on the outside, looking in, that doesn't feel very good because if prices are lower, that means the money I put in the week before that or, 6 months before, it probably looks lower too. But the key thing to remember is that you still own the same number of shares and you're actually buying more shares more quickly when things are going down or when they're lower than they were 6 months ago. So it may not feel fun, but I personally am pretty comfortable with this in my 401k because I know my 401k is not going to be used for a very long time. Even if I'm retiring early and it's part of my early retirement plan, I still have at least 10 years, but more likely closer to 20 plus before I need this money, right? By definition, these plans have a long time horizon because they face penalties if you were to withdraw the money before you're 59 and a half. So it's not a question of will the money I put in be worth more next month? It's do I believe the S&P 500, in this example, is going to be worth more than it is right now in 20 years from now? The other part of your question I want to address is waiting until the market goes in the right direction to start contributing again. Now, while this is very, very tempting, like we want to feel safe when we are investing money, history tells us that when the stock market rebounds, it often does so very quickly and without warning. JP Morgan Asset Management found that in the last 20 years, 7 of the best 10 days overall, the days with the highest returns in the stock market, were within 2 weeks of the 10 worst days overall. So the takeaway is the tides turn very, very quickly. And if you were to miss those 10 best days, your returns are cut in half. Staying fully invested and continuing to dollar cost average into a crashing market the way one does naturally with a 401k plan that occurs systematically after every payday is one of the best approaches to investing out there.